Hey everybody, Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen, leading the movement for movement and bringing you another edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday training, where I take a concept, a practice, something that we utilize in autism fitness training for the autism and neurodivergent population in fitness and adapted physical education settings, and break it down so that it's usable for you in a practical philosophy and practical practice sort of way. And as a preface to this week's Tuesday training, the concept that I'm going to be talking about has absolute practical validity. In fact, some of the most practical validity of anything that we do from an exercise standpoint. So I wanted to premise everything with that. However, part of this video is a little bit selfish in that I never hear this spoken about with respect to the neurodivergent population. So in a way, I just wanted this to be out there somewhere and to be the one communicating it with respect to when we're talking about general exercise, in particular strength training for the autism and neurodivergent population. I apologize from the onset because there are going to be a lot of caveats in the beginning of this, because when we reference the autism or neurodivergent population, of course, we are looking at a wide spectrum. We can refer to individuals who need a very high level of support in order to navigate their daily existence. And then, of course, we have individuals who are highly independent and capable and don't need any support whatsoever in order to navigate and be successful, whatever that is in their day. And the reason I say that is because when we talk about introducing, implementing, coaching, fitness, again, particularly strength training for the autism population, that can mean a lot of different things depending on who our athlete is and what type of support that they need. So, for example, if I'm talking about a high support individual, some of those premises and practices may apply to all populations, but may not. So when we're talking about certain types of prompts and supports for that individual, it may be pertinent to a specific segment or a sample size or a sample of that population, of the autism and neurodivergent population, but not the entirety of the neurodivergent population, because it is vast. And the reason that I come in with this long preamble to the conversation is because we are going to be talking about perhaps the most single important aspect of exercise in terms of it having our most important outcome, which is a training effect. The exercise does the thing that it is intended to do, meaning the individual who is doing the exercise over time, over session and session and session and session, over days and weeks and months, gets stronger, develops a better motor pattern with that particular movement, develops hypertrophy, development of lean muscle, and all of the benefits that come with strength training. The most important aspect of that strength training, among several, is going to be the intensity of the movement. And that intensity, we can add in the theme or the reality of the mind-muscle connection. And of course, around intensity, we need the appropriate amount of sets and repetitions of that particular exercise. And the difference for the efficacy or less so of an exercise, particularly, again, strength exercise, is usually going to come down to the intensity at which that exercise is being performed by that individual. Now, the reason we come back to what I was talking about earlier with prefacing everything is some of you out there, especially if this is the first time that you are watching an Autism Fitness video, are going to be saying, forget intensity, I'm just here to figure out, how to motivate some of my athletes who are likely to get dysregulated easily. I'm just here to figure out how to how I can support them in staying on task, on the exercise, in maintaining motivation, etc. I'm not even worried about intensity, and that's completely understandable. All right. So for many of our athletes, even though I'm sitting here saying intensity is the most important aspect of exercise performance, many of our autism and neurodivergent athletes may not be there yet. We want to set the stage for intensity to occur. What do I mean by intensity? Right? Intensity is as simply defined as the appropriate amount of effort with a particular exercise in the appropriate set and repetition or volume range to create a training effect. And for those of you who are currently working in a fitness capacity with the autism and neurodivergent population, right, think about how hard is that athlete performing that push-up or that squat or that overhead press? How engaged are they in the follow-through with that particular exercise? Or is it more passive? Is it slower? Or are they trying to move too quickly through it? And instead of intensity, they're just going with speed to be done with that exercise, right? So there are layers here. And depending on the particular profile of that athlete, we look at it as intensity as something with a particular exercise that we can start building in and building up right now, or something that eventually, as the athlete becomes more confident and capable and comfortable with that particular exercise, intensity is going to be an eventuality, but we're not there right now. So one thing to take a long view or a wider view on is the reason that many, if not most, neurotypical people do not progress in the gym. Progressing meaning, what are their goals? If your goal is just to go to the gym and move around a little bit, and that's what you do, great. But if the goal is to get stronger, if the goal is to build lean muscle, if the goal is to develop more power, if the goal is to develop strength endurance, any of these is going to need to be met with a certain amount of intensity. The people who never progress are the people who go into the gym and either do random things every time, so there's no gradual buildup of each particular skill, or they go in and they do the same thing over and over and over and over with the same weight and the same reps over and over and over, because we're going to plateau. The body is in homeostasis. It might be a little bit harder than not doing that exercise, but if you're always doing it with 20 pounds, your body doesn't need to get any stronger. It can already lift or push or pull the 20 pounds, doesn't need to do anything, right? And many people who go to many gyms are doing this same thing over and over and over. But you could easily say, well, Eric, and yes, for a change, I'm speaking myself in the third person, but Eric, in some of your other videos, you talk about the importance of doing the same thing over and over and over and over. Yes, absolutely. However, this is not hypocrisy. What it is, instead, setting the stage for the athlete to acquire the skills of that press or push-up or squat or carry, so that they can start to intensify the level of performance, and that is where we start building in intensity by adding more weight or adding more repetitions as the athlete becomes more independently capable with that particular exercise. So intensity, even though it is highly important, we still need to start adding it in when it is appropriate for that particular athlete. So those of you who are thinking about some of your athletes who need more support right now with respect to dysregulation and staying focused during the exercise, the idea of now we have to make it super intense, that's not what we're getting at. That's an improper assessment of what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is getting the athlete to the point where we do increase the challenge level of that exercise, but only when they can perform the exercise in a safe and technically masterful way. So if you have an athlete who's not yet independent with overhead presses, we're probably not going to start adding weight until they can safely, and again, with independent mastery, perform that overhead press. So now it's safe to start adding weight to it. And there are some more aspects to it as far as sets and repetitions, stuff that we get into in the Autism Fitness Pro Certification. Hint. But the reason that we want to get the athlete to a certain point, and the reason that we do a lot of the same programming over and over and over and over, is that we are developing this structure. We are scaffolding to get the athlete to the point, and to enable the athlete to get themselves to the point where they are performing that exercise with an appropriate amount of volume, sets and repetitions, and an appropriate amount of intensity, so that they continue to derive a training effect from that exercise. That is another reason why we stay away from adding too much variety and watering our programs down so that the athlete is unable to progress because there's too much going on. And another reason why it's so important to maintain our programming around the progress level or the progress timeline of that particular athlete. There's no reason to jump up 5 pounds or 10 pounds in weight simply because it's been 4 weeks or it's been 6 weeks, and so we're arbitrarily increasing the weight there. So intensity is, again, the point, the performance of the exercise at a level where it is going to have a training effect for the first time, or it's going to have a continued training effect even though it's been the same exercise for X amount of time. The reality is, for those who do make progress in the gym, and again, I'm talking about also strength skills that transcend or generalize to activities of daily living, it's not constantly switching around exercises. It's staying with the exercises that work for months and months and months and years and years and years, and continuously tweaking them, adding a repetition, adding weight, adding a slightly different angle. All of these are minutia, but important minutia when we get to that level. So the point is that over time, the exercise continues to provide benefit for that individual, but we need to meet that baseline standard first. So intensity is an important factor, but for many of our autism and neurodivergent life skill athletes, we need to guide them and coach them to the point where we can build intensity into that exercise. So the key takeaways here are to stay with those foundational exercises, yes, the ones that you learn and practice in the Autism Fitness curriculum, and ensure that the athlete is performing them safely and effectively so that we can get to the point where that we can increase the intensity for the athlete and they can have a lifetime of benefit from a few exercises, because it's not all about the variety, but about continuing to progress and progress and progress with what we know to be the foundations of strength and human performance. So that is my synopsis on intensity. I'd love to know how this makes you think differently or similarly or newly about your programs and the individuals that you serve. Put that in the comments below. I would really love to know. And if there is a topic you'd like me to cover in a future edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday Training, put that down there also. If you're ready to become an Autism Fitness Certified Pro, head on over to autismfitness.com. You can learn all about the curriculum and register anywhere in the world. I am Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen, leading the movement for movement. Thank you for watching.